Hey, Kyle here from Animist Ecology. In this video, I want to talk about how to better cope with climate change anxiety, this kind of existential anxiety that can come up in the body, in our thoughts, where we really worry about the future and where things are going and the path that humanity seems to be on today. So first off, one of my favorite questions to really open a deeper conversation with people about values, about hopes, about dreams, is to ask people if they are optimistic about the future of humanity. And when I do workshops and retreats, I often ask this very early on from people to kind of get a feeling of where they're at. And I'm always shocked at how often people say, no, I'm not optimistic about the future of humanity. And also I find from age ranges, older people tend to be more optimistic, maybe because they're exiting sooner than later. And younger people tend to be the least optimistic. And you have to wonder about a society, about a culture, when the young people, a huge amount of them don't believe in the future. And I don't know if it's the majority of young people, but for me it seems like a lot have this huge existential anxiety about where things are going and this feeling that they can't change things and can't control things. So talking about how to cope with this anxiety better, it really comes down to values and purpose and what really intrinsically motivates you in your life. Because when we feel no sense of control in our lives, in our communities, in the world, that's when existential anxiety becomes a huge problem. So the question I would ask is, what were you born to do? And what could you do to truly embody your values, your deepest values? So write down on a piece of paper 5 or 10 things you value more than anything, right? And write out kind of the 5 or 10 things you're most passionate about, connected to those values. And then start thinking about ways you can connect those things together and do something that's different, right? And one of the great authors who's really inspired me is named Buckminster Fuller. And he has this great book called Critical Path, about a way forward, about a redesigning civilization so it's sustainable, in line with natural law, and a way of life that can continue for generations into the future. And he calls for people not to be victims of the future, but to be its architects. And he talks a lot about how you don't change things by fighting the existing system, by trying to tear it down, by trying to deconstruct it. You change things by creating a new system that makes the existing system obsolete. So the existing system is centralization, right? Centralized government, centralized power in corporations, industrial agriculture, that takes really the autonomy out of people's lives, right? Even our school system is fundamentally based on rewards and punishments, extrinsic motivation, right? It's coercive, it trains a certain form of schooled individual, whereas the most fulfilled and satisfied people are powered by intrinsic motivation. They know what their passions are and they've dedicated their lives to it. And they've developed autonomy, so they've really dedicated themselves and time to it to get good at it and be accountable to their goals. And they've developed mastery, so they've really dedicated that time, getting better, the challenge, the risk of really going out there and doing something about it. And then also they have this purpose where they're taking what they're passionate about, they're getting the autonomy, the mastery, getting really good at it, and then they're serving a purpose, a need, solving a problem in the world. So really the best way to cope with climate anxiety at a root level is thinking like, what do you want to do? What change do you want to create in the world? And how can you do that? And then the next step to really overcome the anxiety and to turn that anxiety into excitement, into passion for doing something, is to connect with a whole social ecology of people to go out there and do something about it. Because there's really limitations what we can do alone. And often anxiety comes from a lack of community, a lack of belonging, a lack of people around us that are kindred spirits that really share our purpose and our values in an active way where we're doing something about it, right? Because communities grow through activity, through action, through consistency, through doing something where a result is seen and there's celebrations and there's milestones, that kind of thing. So what I recommend doing is starting to learn about nature, starting to learn about how to grow your own food. So for example, whether you just live in an apartment and you have no access to dirt outside, it's very easy to grow mushrooms inside or microgreens and start to build a relationship there and learn about how things grow, how life works. And if you're fortunate enough to have access to a backyard or a community garden, right, you can grow stuff outside. You can grow mushrooms on a log. You can, grow vegetables and stuff. You can start to kind of localize your own food. So that's one thing that can really, really help. But really the key to dealing with anxiety is the community piece. Is a community that's mission-driven, that's value-driven, of like-minded people that are coming together to do something meaningful, to really serve a purpose and solve a problem. So this is really the way to get to the root of that, to get to the root of the anxiety, existential anxiety. And really the big question to ask yourself again and again and again is, what is the change I want to see in the world? And really focus in on that, and then find the others. Find the other people that can help you build that change in community. And doing that, you can relocalize things. You can localize autonomy, mastery, and purpose in your community. You can use these pillars of intrinsic motivation to do something about it. Because the solutions are not going to come from these giant centralized organizations, right? The reality is, it's very easy to buy off a huge centralized organization like a government or a corporation, right, for interest groups, invested interests. Things are going to happen at the local level. Communities being rebuilt, this regenerative culture where we get back to growing our own food, we get back to sharing our resources, we get back to just living in a community as social animals, which is how humans are designed to live. Because really the standard of living that has been achieved in the last 200 years has often come at the loss of community, right? And you can become civilized to death in that we have all these screens, all this stuff, but we don't have that shared sense of community. So to really get to the root of climate change anxiety, start to think about that problem that you can address to really live your values, and then seek the other people to really build that community of change makers, of people that want to build a new system that makes a dependence on the old system, the centralization system, obsolete. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any thoughts on, what can be done to, address climate change, and what you're doing to kind of address, climate change anxiety, I'd love to hear them in the comments. Love to hear your thoughts. And if you like this video, please give it a like. And I hope you enjoy some time in nature this week, and may the forest be with you.